Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And I've got a fantastic guest for you today, Pete Premenko. And he's a leadership coach and consultant. He's got a fantastic persona to him. He's the author of Elevating Potential, a guide to developing emerging leaders. And this is great for all the audience that loves to hear about leadership, communication, empathy. And I'm really happy to welcome him to the show. So, Peter, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Talk about your journey, how you got started, your business, and we'll dive right into it.
Well, so how far do you want to go back? Like the origin story, or what would be helpful?
Well, talk about what you do now and how you can help the people listening to the podcast.
Sounds great. I focus my work right now helping leaders develop their teams, specifically developing the brand new leaders on their teams. Right? Have you ever been put in a position where, and all of us, I think, have been put in a position where we've been promoted to a leadership role or some additional responsibility because of what we were good at, but that new role requires new skills, right? And there are new managers and new leaders that are put into those first time roles maybe not adequately prepared. And this all started for me because I was the director of learning and development at a software company, and it was growing, and there were lots of people being hired all the time, and new positions opened up, and it was fabulous. People coming from their university to their first job to their first manager job, and they were struggling in a lot of ways. And I was thinking about my career and all the people that had been around me and mentored me and all the experiences I had, thinking, wow, so who, like, somebody needs to help all the people here at this company. Who's going to do that to help them grow? And I realized that's my job. Literally, as the director of learning and development, that's my job. So that's kind of where that motivation started. And when I decided to exit that company, I said, I'm going to do that full time for, many different companies. And so that's how I focus my work. And
Yeah, I really love that. And so, diving into the conversation, we'll talk about the evolution of leadership. And so, especially in today's changing times, we have AI, we have remote work from home, we have digital nomadism. People, the rise of the solopreneurs. So, how do you envision the role of leadership evolving, and what impact do you hope your book, Elevating Potential, will have on future generation of leaders?
so it's a great question to ponder because I think, honestly, I think the fundamentals of leading people and being a leader, those are timeless. I think that leadership itself doesn't really change, but what is changing so fast right now are the tools that we have and the business environment and all of the, like, one day we were all in our office in 2019. We went to a holiday break, we came back in 2020, and before we knew it, we were all spread out and talking to each other just like this. And somehow this became normal, where 6 months earlier it was completely foreign. So leading people is the same, but the context changed so rapidly. And so things like AI now and other technologies create more diverse business environments and different challenges for leaders. And so I think the main focus for leadership change is the emphasis on how leaders have to continually grow and develop because of all of those things. There's just no sitting back thinking that what I did yesterday or last year is going to be effective and work tomorrow. So as leaders, we have to be continually on our toes and grow and develop. And actually, that's what I hope the book helps to move forward, is that we can't get away with just putting people into positions of leadership and hope they survive. We've got to prepare them adequately. And so how do we do that?
Yeah, and kind of what another question I really have is because I was, Elon put out a tweet the other day saying that the role of jobs in the future, jobs are going to be optional, and so people are going to feel free to, they're going to be able to, there's going to be financial abundance. There's not going to be this rich and poor. It's like people are going to be able to own their own means of production and control their means of income. And so, do you see leadership as becoming obsolete because this whole notion of like these CEOs making 50 million or whatever absurd amount, and it's like, when people are seeing this, they're like, I'm not going to work for a corporation. I want to start a company and all of this. How does that fit into what you're talking about?
I don't think leadership ever becomes obsolete. Now, the way we understand corporate leadership and business leadership, that may change really drastically for all the things that you're saying. But, in the book early on, I talk about leadership is more than those boardroom positions.
Yeah.
Leadership is like how we lead ourselves in our community. There are always going to be things happening around us, regardless if there are jobs or not. There are going to be groups of people trying to accomplish a thing, and leadership's going to be necessary to do that. So I don't think that will ever go away. But you're right, the way we understand corporate marketplace business leadership, I think there are some changes in store. Well, I'd like there to be some changes in store.
Mhm.
Maybe they don't happen, but I think I'd like them to happen.
Moving on, when you talk about changes in leadership, how do you see that, bridging the gap between training and real world application? What are the biggest gaps between corporate training programs and real world application? And how can organizations better prepare their new leaders?
The biggest gap that I see, and I've done this, so full disclosure, I've been the person that has done this as well, is that we make really short-term decisions with regard to people's development in the corporate world. We're comfortable making long-term capital investments, but we're not comfortable making long-term personnel investments. And so that means that we do short-term training initiatives. We like go to class for a day, and that magically prepares you for the challenges of the next quarter. And there's a time and place for formal learning and training. And again, that's how I make my living. So I don't want to sound like I'm talking through both sides of my mouth, but there's a time and a place for that. But the magic is being able to transfer what happened in the classroom into real life. And that's where your manager, your vice president, your director needs to be directly involved, because they're the ones that help transfer what you learned in the book and the TED Talk at the class to what you're doing in your role. And that's where the real life happens. Does that make sense?
And then the other question I have is, even for my company, my business, and a lot of my entrepreneur friends, the one thing they complain about employees is that they can't find good talent. So like the really great talent never stays. They go and do other great things, and then they're left with like kind of the crappy employees. So my thinking from a leader or CEO standpoint is that if I'm having all these like staffing issues, then I could go to robotics. I can use software as a service, and that kind of eliminates this unreliable and this poor quality control. And so, how did leaders think about this in terms of staffing and employees and talent and all of that?
So you bring up a really great point. I mean, there are automations that can replace what people do. I'm not, I won't ever say that's a bad idea. Those things, I think they have a place. I certainly do. And maybe that's better in some ways than what's going on for some organizations and some companies. The problem that I see from what you described, the challenge with leaders thinking they can't get good qualified staff, my question is always like, why would I want to work for you? If people aren't coming to work for you, why not? It's like, why aren't you coming to my restaurant? It's probably because you don't like my food or my service or my price. So
Yeah.
then if somebody won't come work for you, why is it? Is it because the job's not appealing? Is it because you don't pay enough? Is it because you're not fun to work with? Like, what are the things going on there? Because I think you can find the qualified people, but the question is, so like I said, why would I work for you? And that's where it gets really tough. And we have to get really honest with ourselves and maybe have somebody that we're partnered with to help ask the tough questions too.
And I really, it's kind of interesting. Is it the leadership problem? Is it, because a lot of leaders, they're good at vision, they're good at maybe selling the strategy, and then they have the COO that actually executes the strategy and that they kind of manage the day to day, and so that frees up the CEO to kind of focus on really high level building partnerships, kind of growing the business. Um, role do you think emotional intelligence plays in effective leadership, and how can emerging leaders work on improving the skill?
It's so important. I mean, just to function as a human being, it's really helpful to understand my own emotions and where they're coming from. Why do I feel this way? It's really helpful to be able to understand somebody else's emotion and why that's happening. As a leader, we have to adjust and flex to the people around us. I've had people that I've coached that have asked me, Pete, why do I have to change? Why can't they just all adjust to me? And because I have to adjust to 20 people, why they only have to adjust to me? Why that doesn't seem fair? And my answer is because you're their leader. That's why. That's your job. And when you do that, you model it for them. So the importance of being emotionally intelligent, being aware of things like empathy and how can I understand your feelings as a leader, it's not only helpful for me to relate to each person, but I show my team how to do those things as well. And that's where
Yeah,
I think is most leaders overlook that part. Is like the way they act and behave, that models for their rest of the team what they expect from people. And so I think that becomes really important.
yeah. Kind of rounding it out, talk about self awareness, personal growth, and how can people contact you, find you, work with you, check out your book, etc.
Oh, sure, I'd love to. Um, Self-awareness, I mean, it starts there. When I'm working with teams or individuals, I start with the framework of like to be a good leader, there's four basic domains we have to master, or at least work toward. Obviously, manage and lead the team is one. Manage and lead the business or the function is separate. Manage and lead the culture. But central to all of those is managing and leading myself. In fact, I just had a conversation with my wife and I were just talking. She hadn't heard that until we'd been together for some time. And managing and leading myself is first before everything else. And so that's a starting point. That's why self-awareness is so important. Um, it's to learn more about the work that I do. My website, petepremenko.com, is a great place to start and kind of learn about me and connect. I'm on LinkedIn, would love to connect with people there. It's just LinkedIn, Peter Premenko, I think something like that. I'm not hard to find. There's not many guys named Premenko. And the book is Elevating Potential. It's available on Amazon.
Audience, as thank Pete for coming on and talking about these, very important concepts. Be sure to check out the book. It's on Amazon. Leave a 5-star review. Check out his socials as well. Like and follow. And with that, thanks so much for coming on.
Very good. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.